everyone, and welcome back. Tonight's story is 13 Dead Strange Rules of Visiting My Zombie-Infested Hometown. Don't go outside Creepypasta. Returning home is supposed to feel familiar, but not when your hometown is crawling with the dead. The only way to survive here is to follow a set of strange, terrifying rules. Rules that make no sense until you realize what's really waiting outside. And, above all else, don't go outside. If you enjoy these disturbing creepypastas, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? I always love seeing where everyone is tuning in. Now, let's begin. Don't go home. Not if your home is like mine. The dust still settles here, centuries after the first breath of the world ended. It's in the air, thick and gray, coating everything in a fine layer of forgetfulness. But it doesn't quite cover the smell. That cloying metallic sweetness, like rust mixed with a butcher's shop on a humid summer day. A smell that means death, lingered and putrefying, no matter how many rainstorms try to wash it away. I shouldn't be here. Every fiber of my being, every screaming nerve ending tells me to run, to drive until the gas tank sputters empty, then walk until my feet bleed just to get away from these crumbling houses, these familiar streets, this silence. A silence that's worse than any scream because it's not truly empty. It's pregnant with the promise of movement, of a dragging shuffle, of a wet, ragged moan just around the next corner. But I had to come back. Not for closure, not for hope. Hope died here a long time ago, suffocated under a pile of gnawed bones and shattered glass. I came back because of a letter, a single, flimsy piece of paper delivered by a drone from the last government outpost. A government that barely exists anymore, clinging to the edges of the maps like mold. It was from my grandmother, or at least it had her scrawled, shaky handwriting. 3 words, I'm still here. 3 words that tore me apart. For years, I told myself she was gone, swallowed by the wave like everyone else. It was easier to live with, to pretend the entire town of Havenwood, population 3,000, was nothing more than a ghost in my memory. But I'm still here. It pulled me back, a desperate, foolish tether to a past I knew was lethal. I'm sitting in the living room now, the one I grew up in, or what's left of it. The wallpaper peels in curling strips, exposing damp, skeletal lath. Moonlight slices through gaps in the boarded-up windows, painting the dust motes dancing in the air like a million tiny, frantic souls. Every creak of the house settling, every distant groan of rusted metal in the wind makes my heart vault into my throat. My palms are slick with a cold sweat that never dries. When I first arrived, navigating the choked, overgrown roads, the first thing that hit me wasn't the silence or the smell. It was the absolute, unyielding stillness. No birdsong, no distant traffic, just the wind whistling through broken panes, a mournful, drawn-out sigh. I remember stepping out of the car, my bag slung over my shoulder, the sun already dipping low, painting the ruined skyline in streaks of bruised purple and orange. And then I heard it. A sound that has haunted my nightmares since I was old enough to understand what it meant. A low, guttural choke, followed by a wet thump. It came from the direction of Old Man Peterson's house, just down the street. My instinct, honed by years of surviving in the fringes, was to freeze, to listen, to try and triangulate the source, to assess the threat. But another, far more primal instinct screamed at me, run. I didn't run. I couldn't. My feet felt cemented to the cracked asphalt. My gaze was fixed on Peterson's porch, where a shadow, vaguely human-shaped, seemed to shift, then stoop. A sickening, tearing sound followed. That was the moment the rules started to form in my mind, not explicit yet, not written down, but etched into my very being by sheer, unadulterated terror. The first unspoken rule was simple: don't draw attention, and the second more profound: they don't always move. It's been 3 days since I got here, 3 days of this constant gnawing dread. I found Grandma somehow. She's changed, not in the way you'd expect, not like them, but the life, the spark. It's faded, replaced by a hollow-eyed weariness. She's the one who gave me the binder, the worn, dog-eared, spiral-bound binder that now sits on my lap, its pages covered in her tiny, precise handwriting. It's not a journal. It's a survival guide, a desperate, meticulously crafted testament to what it takes to live in the heart of the dying. "There are rules, child," she'd rasped, her voice thin as a whisper from beyond the grave. Her eyes, cloudy with age and fear, stared through me, not at me. 13 of them. Break one, and you might as well open the front door and invite them in for tea. She pointed a trembling finger at the first page. "Rule number 1, she'd said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush, as if the very walls had ears, as if the things outside could listen, could understand. "Never, under any circumstances, go outside after sundown. Not for anything." I'd scoffed, a nervous, desperate attempt at humor. "Sun's down, Grandma." "So, I guess I'm fine in here." Her eyes had sharpened then, a flicker of the old fire. "It's not about the light, child. It's about them. They change. The sun, it calms them, makes them predictable. But when darkness falls, when the shadows stretch and merge and swallow everything, that's when they become something else entirely. Something worse." She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. The sheer conviction in her voice, the tremor in her hands, the way she clutched the faded quilt to her chest as if warding off an invisible cold. It was enough. It was more than enough. I've heard sounds in the night, even from behind these reinforced windows, that make my blood turn to ice. Scrabbling, clicking, things that shouldn't move on 2 legs or even 4, but squirm and scrape like something inhuman. The generator outside sputters, then catches, bathing the room in the harsh, flickering glow of a single bare bulb. It's the only luxury we have, the only thing that separates this suffocating silence from utter, terrifying blackness. Every rumble of its ancient engine is a betrayal, a beacon in the pervasive gloom that blankets the town. But we need it. We need it for the water purifier, for the bare minimum of survival. And sometimes, Grandma says, for the shortwave radio. Although I've never seen her use it. It just sits there, an obsolete relic of a world that no longer exists, its dials gathering dust. I can feel the weight of these rules, even before I've read them all. They are the new commandments, etched not in stone, but in fear. Each one a thread in a fragile web that holds us back from the abyss. The air in here is stale, thick with the scent of old wood and the faintest lingering hint of that outside decay. Every draft feels like a cold finger trailing down my spine. My stomach growls, a sharp, embarrassing noise in the stillness. I clutch the binder tighter, my knuckles white. Food rations are low. The water purifier just hums, working its slow, methodical magic on a bucket of collected rainwater. But the thought of going outside, even in the safety of morning, to find more, it makes my throat seize up. This town, my childhood home, it's a living tomb. and I'm trapped inside it, trying to learn the rules of survival from a woman who's already halfway to becoming a ghost herself. The first rule: never go outside after sundown. I think I understand why. It's not just about what you can't see. It's about what they can become. And I have a horrible, sickening feeling that the 12 rules after this one are only going to get stranger and far, far more terrifying. This isn't just about avoiding a bite. It's about navigating a world where the very fabric of reality seems to have been torn apart, leaving only fragments of a horrifying, twisted logic. My grandmother has seen it all. She's survived it all. And now she's trying to pass on that agonizing, deadly knowledge before it's too late for me. I turn the brittle page of the binder, the paper crinkling under my trembling fingers. Grandma's handwriting, small and precise, is like a roadmap to hell. Rule number 2: never trust a still one. They are the most dangerous. Always assume they are observing. My breath catches. I remember Man Peterson's porch, the shadow that stooped, the sickening, tearing sound. I'd told myself it was just a shadow, a trick of the fading light. But Grandma's words, scribbled here, confirmed the nightmare. Still ones, she'd explained, her voice barely audible as she watched the dust motes dance in a sliver of sunlight. They aren't like the shufflers, the ones that moan and wander aimlessly. Those are just hungry, predictable. The still ones. They're waiting. They're smart. They think she'd shuddered, her old eyes wide and distant. Or something like thought still clings to them. A predator's patience. I saw one today. I had to go to the kitchen, a quick trip for water. The window there, boarded up unevenly, had a small crack like a missing tooth. Through it, I glimpsed the neighbor's yard. Mr. Henderson's prize-winning rose bushes, now withered husks, thorny and skeletal. And standing among them, perfectly motionless, was a figure. It was Mr. Henderson, or what was left of him. He was facing away from the house, towards the street, his back rigid. His clothes, what little remained, hung in tatters, revealing glimpses of gray, puckered flesh like forgotten clay. A thin line of dried blood, black as old oil, snaked from his ear down his neck. He hadn't moved an inch in the 15 minutes I stood there, frozen, watching him. Not a twitch, not a sway. Just absolute, terrifying stillness, like a statue carved from bone and fear. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum in the silence. Every instinct screamed at me to move, to run. But another, colder voice, Grandma's voice, whispered, "Never trust a still one." My eyes were glued to him, and then, subtly, almost imperceptibly, his head tilted, just a fraction of an inch, not towards me, but towards the rustling of leaves in the wind down the street. It was enough to confirm Grandma's chilling words. They are observing. They are waiting. They are not mindless husks. They are something infinitely more terrifying. They are hunters. I force myself to turn the page, needing more data, more rules to cling to. Rule number 3. Always check the eyes. The eyes are the only truth left. I remember looking at Henderson. His head had been turned. I hadn't seen his eyes. A cold wave of nausea washes over me. Was I stupid? Was I too focused on his stillness to notice? Their eyes, Grandma had murmured, staring into the flickering flame of a candle last night. Her voice, barely a whisper. They're not human anymore. Not quite. The pupils, they shrink to pinpricks sometimes. And the irises, they shift. Like a cat's, but wrong. A green-yellow luminescence. Faint, but there. And if you look closely enough, if you dare, you can see a flicker of something in them. Something that was once them, trapped, screaming, or something that wants to be you, looking out. The mere thought made my stomach churn. I'd seen pictures, grainy, censored government files from before the collapse, showing the infected. Their eyes had been described as milky or bloodshot, never luminescent, never shrinking pupils. This was something different, something evolved. This was Havenwood's special brand of hell. I imagined trying to check Henderson's eyes, getting close enough. My mind rebels. The thought of that dead, waiting stillness, and then the sudden, terrible reveal of those predatory, glowing pinpricks. No, I couldn't. I wouldn't. I'll just have to assume any still one is a threat. Better safe than whatever fate awaited those who made a mistake here. Rule number 4. Sound is a lure. Silence is a trap. Know the difference. This rule resonated immediately. The generator's hum, a constant low thrum against the pervasive quiet. It felt safe, a mechanical heartbeat in a dead world. But it was also a siren song, a beacon. You think quiet is safe? Grandma had chuckled, a dry, raspy sound that held no humor. Quiet is when they hunt. Quiet is when they listen. A sudden sound. That can be a lure or a warning, depends on what you're trying to do. She explained that the shufflers, the more common variety, were drawn to loud, sudden noises, a dropped pot, a car alarm, if one still worked, even a shout. They would gravitate towards it, slow and clumsy, but relentless. The still ones, however, were different. They heard everything, the rustle of clothes, the quiet creak of floorboards, the shallow rasp of a breath held too long. And they didn't rush, they stalked. I'd tested this foolishly. In the dead of night, unable to sleep, I thought I heard something outside my window. A faint scratching. I'd held my breath listening, the silence of the house amplifying every beat of my heart. The scratching stopped. And then, much closer, from the other side of the house, I heard a thump. Not loud, just present, as if something had gently knocked against the wall. A warning, I hear you. I didn't breathe again until the first sliver of dawn painted the sky a sickly gray. The generator. It was too loud. It called to them. But the absolute silence without it. It felt like holding my breath underwater, knowing I had to surface, but dreading what I'd find. It was a terrifying paradox. The only way to truly be safe, to disappear, was to cease existing. And even then, I wasn't sure. Rule number 5. They remember, or something remembers for them. Familiarity is a weapon. This one chilled me to the bone. It implied a malevolent, almost personal element. Not just mindless hunger, but a twisted echo of their former lives. Old man Henderson, he loved his roses, Grandma had said, pointing vaguely towards the neighbor's yard, where I'd seen the still one. He'd spend hours out there, talking to them, like they were children. Now he just stands there, among them, waiting. Her voice dropped. Sometimes, if you make a noise, a certain kind of noise, they turn. Not like they're hearing it, but like they're remembering it, a name, a melody, something they loved. And then they come for you with a purpose, not just hunger, something personal. The idea that my former neighbors, my friends, my townspeople could still hold some warped fragment of their past, twisted into a hunting instinct, was horrific. It meant that every familiar object, every old photograph, every memory could be a trigger. The creak of the porch swing, the faint scent of baking bread that once wafted from Mrs. Gable's kitchen, the jingle of keys I used to hear old Mr. Davies make before he left for work. Any of these could be the thing that drew them out, not randomly, but specifically towards me, towards someone they knew. I quickly flipped past the next few pages, eager to devour more rules, but also terrified of what they might reveal. My eyes scanned ahead, catching glimpses of bolded words, underlined phrases. The periphery is a lie. Reflection is a window. The water always watches. Each one a new spike of dread. Rule number 6. The periphery is a lie. Never trust what you see from the corner of your eye. I knew this one instinctively, but to have it validated, given a rule number, made it concrete, horrifyingly real. How many times had I seen a flicker of movement just beyond my direct vision? A shadow that seemed to stretch, or a form that wasn't quite there, then vanished when I turned my head fully. I'd dismissed them as exhaustion or tricks of the light. But Grandma's rule said otherwise. They're faster than you think, she'd said, and they know how to use the gaps in your sight. They drift, they shimmer. You see them, and then you don't. And then they're closer than you thought possible. It was a tactic, a deliberate psychological attack, to make you doubt your own senses, to make you paranoid, constantly whipping your head around, exposing yourself, exhausting yourself. It was designed to wear you down, to break your mind before they ever laid a finger on you. This rule meant that true safety wasn't just about physical barriers, but about maintaining absolute, unwavering mental clarity. And that felt impossible. I shivered, pulling the threadbare blanket tighter around me. The moon, a sliver of bone-white light, crept higher in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows across the room. Every shadow seemed to writhe, to coalesce into something menacing. My eyes, despite Grandma's rule, kept darting to the edges of my vision, searching for the phantom movement that I now knew was not so phantom after all. It was exhausting, and I was already so tired. The next rule, scrawled right below the one about the periphery, made my heart skip a beat. It seemed to directly contradict the first rule, or at least add a horrifying nuance to it. Rule number 7. The safe zones are anything but. The illusion of safety is the deadliest lure. I'd always thought of my grandmother's house as a sanctuary, boarded windows, reinforced doors, a generator, a water purifier, a place to hunker down and ride it out. But this rule, "There are no safe zones, child," Grandma had whispered, her voice like sandpaper on bone. Not truly. The government tried to establish them early on. Designated buildings, evacuation points. They thought concrete walls and checkpoints would hold them. Fools, she'd coughed, a wet, rattling sound. They forgot Rule 2. The still ones. They get in, or they wait. They don't bang on doors. They find the weaknesses, the forgotten crawl space, the loose board in the attic, the small crack in the foundation. Or they just become the safe zone, waiting inside for you. My blood ran cold. The image of old man Henderson, still and silent, among his roses, replayed in my mind. What if he wasn't alone out there? What if others, just as still, just as patient, were inside, hidden in the shadows of the empty houses, waiting for someone foolish enough to enter? Or worse, what if this house, my grandmother's house, wasn't as safe as she believed, or as she wanted me to believe? What if something was already here, hidden, waiting, observing from the shadows just beyond my sight? The thought sent a jolt of pure, unadulterated terror through me. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to banish the images, but they clung to my mind, insidious and persistent. The air suddenly felt thick, pressing down on me, heavy with unseen threats. I read on, my gaze glued to the aging pages, each sentence a new burden on my already strained psyche. My grandmother's hand, steady despite her age, had meticulously recorded the descent into this madness, outlining the very parameters of fear. Rule number 8. Reflection is a window. Never trust what you see in glass, water, or any polished surface. This one had made me snatch back my hand from the dusty, tarnished antique mirror in the hallway. Grandma had covered it with a blanket, but I'd almost forgotten. Now, I understood why. "They look out from them," she'd explained, her voice low and serious as she tied the knot on the blanket covering the mirror. "Or something else does. You'll see it. A flicker. A movement that isn't yours. A shadow that doesn't match. And if you stare, if you truly look into it, it'll look back. And then it'll know you're watching." She hadn't said what it would do then, but the implication hung heavy in the stale air. It wouldn't be good. The house, old as it was, had plenty of reflective surfaces, dusty picture frames with glass, the polished surface of the old mahogany dining table, even the scratched screen of a long-dead television set in the corner. Now, every single one of them felt like a potential breach. A pinhole camera aimed directly at me from a dimension I couldn't comprehend. I found myself instinctively turning away from windows, not just because of what might be outside, but because of the possibility of what might be inside their reflection. Even the surface of the water in my glass when I wasn't drinking seemed to shimmer unnaturally, and I quickly covered it. It was a constant, exhausting vigilance. Every glint of light on metal, every dark pane of glass became a source of immediate, sickening paranoia. Was that a faint ripple on the table's surface, not from my breath? A fleeting, distorted face in the depths of a dusty photo frame, dissolving before I could truly focus? It made my eyes ache, my mind swim, the constant battle between what was real and what was merely a trick of the light, or worse, a deliberate illusion. I began to understand that Havenwood wasn't just infested with physical threats, but with psychological ones, designed to unravel your mind from the inside out. Rule number 9. The water always watches. Avoid standing water at all costs. This rule felt less immediately threatening than the others, but no less sinister. Havenwood was a rainy town, nestled beside a river. Puddles were common. Now, they were death traps. "It's not just the drinking, child," Grandma had said, pointing a trembling finger at the dirty rainwater collected in a bucket outside the window. "The water, it's a conduit, like a nerve ending for the whole infected landscape. They can sense you through it, your heat, your movement. They know where you are if you're too close to a puddle or a stagnant pond, or even a bathtub full of old water. And the river is their highway." I had scoffed at first. Water? How could water be dangerous? But then she told me about the postman, old Mr. Finch. He'd always taken a shortcut through the abandoned park, cutting across the muddy field. One day, after a heavy rain, he vanished. Weeks later, his satchel was found floating in a large, murky puddle where the field used to be, swollen with rain. His body was never recovered, just the satchel and a single mud-stained shoe. Grandma insisted he'd been dragged down through the water, pulled under by unseen hands that had somehow used the puddle as a gateway. The memory of the still water in Mr. Henderson's yard, nestled amongst his dead roses, sent a fresh shiver down my spine. The way it reflected the gray, dead sky, perfectly still, perfectly calm. But now I saw it differently, not as a mirror, but as a silent, unblinking eye, waiting. Every rainstorm now brought with it not just the promise of fresh, clean water for survival, but a heightened sense of danger, of being watched, of the very ground beneath me, becoming a surveillance system for the horrors that lurked. I found myself obsessively scanning for puddles, tracing circuitous routes, even within the relative safety of the house, avoiding any damp patch, any standing liquid. The damp, pervasive smell of decay in the air, the constant feeling of clammy air, it all linked back to the ever-present, watchful water. Rule number 10. Blood is an offering. Any wound, no matter how small, must be immediately and thoroughly hidden. This rule was terrifyingly primal. It touched on something ancient, something beyond mere infection. "They smell it," Grandma said, her voice dropping to a low, guttural growl that sounded nothing like her. "Oh, they smell it. But it's not just hunger, child. It's a call, like a bell ringing for dinner, but for something far more terrible than a meal. It draws them out, specifically. Not just the shufflers, the others. The ones you haven't seen yet. The ones you pray you never will. I'd nicked myself shaving yesterday morning, a small, barely there cut on my jawline. My first instinct was to just dab it with a tissue. But Grandma, who'd been watching me with those piercing, knowing eyes, had grabbed my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "No," she'd hissed. "Not like that. You clean it, you sterilize it, and then you hide it, with layers, with anything you can find. Don't let a single drop of it dry on the air. Don't let a single molecule escape." I'd understood then. It wasn't about preventing infection. It was about preventing detection. My blood wasn't just blood. It was a beacon, an irresistible lure, and the idea that there were others, the ones you haven't seen yet, that were even worse than the still ones, made my stomach clench with cold dread. Every scratch, every paper cut became a mini apocalypse. I handled everything with extreme caution, paranoid of sharp edges, splinters, anything that could break the skin. The constant vigilance for potential injury, on top of everything else, was exhausting. I felt like a tightly wound spring, ready to snap at any moment, living in a world where my own body could betray me with a single crimson drop. Rule number 11. The lullaby is a curse. Never, ever follow the faint melody. This one made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I remembered hearing it a few nights ago. A soft, distorted humming, barely audible over the wind, drifting from somewhere far down the street. It had been beautiful, haunting, and insidious. "They mimic," Grandma whispered, her eyes fixed on something I couldn't see, just beyond the walls. "They learn. They remember the sounds of human comfort, a child's cry, a mother's song, a familiar tune, and they use it, they twist it, they make it beautiful, inviting. It calls you out. It promises comfort, familiarity, rescue. But it's a trap. It's a lure for the desperate, for the broken-hearted. And when you follow it, when you step outside, reaching for that echo of what was, that's when they take you. Not quickly. Never quickly. I thought back to that faint, almost melodic hum. It had been so enticing, so familiar, like a ghost of my own childhood. I'd almost gone to the window, almost peered out, pulled by an invisible string. The thought now made me physically ill. To weaponize comfort, to turn the most sacred innocent sounds into instruments of torture and death, it was a level of malevolence I hadn't yet truly grasped. It showed a chilling intelligence, a deep understanding of human psychology that went far beyond mere zombie instincts. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about resisting an assault on my very soul. The silence, punctuated only by the generator's hum, was now a welcome blanket, no matter how suffocating. Any other sound, especially one that held the faintest echo of humanity, was now a terrifying signal. Rule number 12, never touch the bones. The ground is littered with them, and they are not inert. I'd seen them, piles of them, sometimes just a single bleached femur sticking out of the overgrown weeds, a macabre marker. The town was a graveyard, not just of houses, but of its former inhabitants. "They're not just dead things, child," Grandma had said, her voice laced with a chilling reverence. "They hold something, a trace of what they were, a resonance, and it can cling to you, or it can draw them to you. The ones who are drawn to the echoes, the ones who collect her words, were fragmented, but the implication was clear. The bones were not to be disturbed. They were not to be even approached. They were like the teeth of a living, breathing predator scattered across the landscape. I remembered walking on the road, carefully stepping around crumbling debris, and seeing a small, child-sized rib cage half buried in the mud near the old school playground. My gut had twisted, but my instinct had been to just get past it. Now, I understood that even proximity was a risk. The air around them felt heavy, stagnant, thick with unspoken horrors. The sheer casualness with which Havenwood's former residents were strewn across the landscape, their final resting places utterly disrespected by the very things that consumed them, was a testament to the horror. It made every step outside a minefield, not just of the living, but of the deeply, unsettlingly dead. The thought of accidentally stepping on one, of the sickening crunch beneath my boot, sent a wave of nausea through me. It meant I was walking on a carpet of the cursed dead, and any disturbance could wake the sleeping demons that clung to their skeletal remains. This town wasn't just dangerous, it was profoundly, inherently unholy. Rule number 13. They want you to forget the rules. Your memory is their ultimate meal. This is the most insidious rule. Grandma told me this morning, her voice thin, eyes distant. "They don't just take your body, child," she whispered. "They take your mind first. They feed on fear, but gorge on forgotten knowledge. The rules, they'll try to make you forget them, to blur them, to make you doubt what you've seen. A memory lapse, a moment of confusion. That's all they need. That's when you make a fatal mistake. That's when you step outside after dark. That's when you trust a still one. That's when you follow the lullaby. They want you lost, disoriented, unarmed in your own mind. I feel it happening already. The blur. Moments where I question if it's paranoia or horrifyingly real. This constant dread erodes my grip on reality, makes me forget what keeps me alive. It's a battle for sanity. That's why I'm telling you this. If anything happens to me, someone needs to know. Understand what this town is, what they are. Don't come here. Don't try to find me. Just learn these rules, because who knows when your world becomes like mine? Share this. Let me know if you've ever felt this consuming fear. Your comments, your stories. They might be the only lifeline left, the only way this warning survives.